All right, so Megan Perra, after the break, you're first up from the University of Alaska Fairbanks, understanding what caribou hear and how they respond to sound disturbance. Megan got into the minds of caribou.
Okay, well, you can go ahead and jump to the next slide as I introduce myself. So I'm Megan Perra. I'm a graduate student working with Todd Brinkman at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. And I'm here to tell you about some of our caribou-related research that we've been working on. So we're interested in how much caribou listen to the sounds around them, specifically the loud sounds that can be created by human activity on the North Slope. And to understand that, we had to ask ourselves, what are caribou even capable of hearing? We didn't want to assume that they're responding to sounds outside of their hearing range. So we were able to answer this question using domestic reindeer at the Large Animal Research Station at UAF. Essentially, we hooked these reindeer up to an EEG and measured their brain's response to sounds played through an earbud. So if we saw 5 brain waves on our EEG, this meant the sound had basically traveled through the auditory cortex of the brain and was well on its way to being heard by the animal. So if any of you have had children in a hospital, this is actually the same method that nurses and doctors use to test infants for deafness and hearing deficiencies. Next slide. So what we found from our study was that reindeer's hearing is actually quite good. So the graph on the left is an audiogram. So each point represents a specific sound frequency and then how loud a sound has to be at that frequency for a reindeer to hear it. So previous research from a behavioral study in the early 2000s showed that they can hear from 63 hertz all the way up to 32,000 hertz. But from our methods, we actually found that they can hear much lower than that, down to 30 hertz, which was the lowest frequency sound that our equipment could actually play for the animal. So it's possible that they can hear even lower than that. But what this information is telling us about caribou, who are the same species as reindeer, is that they can hear all types of human-made noise that they might encounter on the North Slope. So anything from cars to low frequency noises made during oil exploration. And over the past few summers, we've used audio recorders to gather data on how much human noise is actually present across the calving grounds of both the Central Arctic and the porcupine caribou herds. So we know that caribou can hear all this noise, and we're working on figuring out how much that noise is present across the landscape. But what we don't know is how caribou are actually responding to these sounds. And that's where audio collars come in. Next slide. So audio collars are basically a GPS collar with a small recorder attached to them. So with the recorder, we have a record of when the caribou are exposed to certain sounds. And then the GPS collar gives us information on how the caribou moves or doesn't move after that sound occurs. There are a number of questions we could ask with these collars. They could help us determine exactly when caribou are being harassed by insects. We could also look at how caribou respond to aircraft noise, and we could even see if caribou have a preference for habitats where other wildlife like birds are singing. So our team has already developed a model that can accurately label all of the important sounds in a recording. So we have the capacity to process audio data from these collars fairly quickly, but we don't really want to move forward with this project unless we're working with the community that would want to direct this kind of research and focus it on the questions that they feel are important. So this talk is really just an invitation for community members who subsist on caribou to give us a holler and let us know if they'd be interested in using this tool and in using the audio collars. And that's all I've got for today.